Hi, my name is Jordan Milner, and this is my video for Chapter 13, Curriculum Development and Implementation. Hi staff, I would just like to welcome you to today's professional development meeting. So today we're going to be talking about curriculum. So I have this question. Curriculum, what is it? Go ahead and talk amongst your tables about curriculum. What does that word mean to you? What is it? Alright, thank you so much for doing that. So in your discussions, what is curriculum? Is it the educator's Bible? Is it just a resource? Well, according to Lunenburg and Ornstein, curriculum is dealing with the experiences of the learner, which means it's any activity in or out of school that promotes learning. Or you can look at it this way. It could be a plan for action or a written document which includes strategies for achieving desired goals or ends. So I have a few things that we can think about here. What resources make up your curriculum? So right now, just be thinking about how the curriculum is used in your classroom. Has the curriculum in your classroom already been planned out for you? Do you pull in resources to help enhance the curriculum that you have been given? In what ways are our students learning? Through books and lectures, experiments and group work, field trips, real-life experiences? And what conclusions can you draw about the way that we use curriculum? So go ahead and think about those for a minute. Alright, great. So keep all of that in mind, and we're going to discuss the way that we have been developing curriculum here at Walnut. So here's curriculum the Walnut way. Each subject area and grade level has a set planned out curriculum. But each teacher also provides students with several ways to learn, which means that the curriculum we are given is our guide. We can make it our own. We can provide students with unique learning opportunities. Life is not black and white. Our curriculum does not have to be either. So while there is a set out planned curriculum, you can really use that as a guide. If you have a better way to introduce a topic that's going to be more relatable to our students, you can do that, and we are doing that, and that's great. So let's look at some different approaches to curriculum. The first approach is the behavioral approach, which is logical and prescriptive. It's a step-by-step strategy for formulating curriculum. It's usually based on a plan, which means specifying goals and objectives. Managerial. Curriculum is planned in terms of programs, schedules, spaces, resources, and personnel and departments. It's based off of a plan, but is focused on the organization and the supervisory of the curriculum implementation. Then we have systems, which is where the curriculum is organized into a system. Curriculum is planned through engineering and goes through stages: development, design, implementation, and evaluation. It is not a design that looks at curriculum based on subject area or grade level. And finally, we have the humanistic approach, which is where lessons are based off of real-life experiences and emphasize socialization. It's less rigid in development and implementation than other approaches. This would look like group projects, games, field trips, learning centers, and creative problem solving throughout your lessons. There's active student participation. It's not as structured as other approaches, so it requires that we set high expectations for students and we maintain those with students. At Walnut, we value the behavioral and the humanistic approaches. This mix allows us to set specific goals and targets to work towards, but also allows us freedom in our teaching to help kids really relate to their learning and see how they can use their learning past just the classroom. So curriculum, the development. How do we select our content when developing curriculum? We look at two different models. The Tyler Behavioral Model, which starts out by identifying your school's goals. Then you identify the needs and interests of the students. Then you develop instructional objectives based off of the school's goals and district's philosophies. Then you select learning experiences that allow for the attainment of objectives. It systematically organizes the learning experiences. And finally, You evaluate. Were the objectives achieved? The next model that we look at is Weinstein and Fantini, the humanistic model, where you identify your learners, so you're looking at their age, their grade level, their culture. You determine the learner's concerns. So what do your learners need? What do your learners need? And what are their interests? You also look at your learner's self-image and self-concepts. Then you look at diagnosis. So developing strategies for instructions to meet the learner's needs. After that, you organize your ideas. So you select themes based on your learner's concerns. Then there's 3 content vehicles you use to deliver the content. So the content is taught through the attitudes and feelings of learners, the experiences of learners, and the social context in which they live. Then you look at your learning skills. So you're teaching the basic skill of learning to your students, and you're teaching problem solving. Then how are you teaching your procedures? Through the humanistic model, you want to make sure that you're teaching your procedures through matching the learning styles of your students. And finally, the outcomes. Teachers should evaluate the outcomes of the curriculum. What's working, what's not. So curriculum development the Walnut way. We identify school goals. We identify the needs and interests of our students. We develop instructional objectives based off of the school's goals and the district's philosophies. We determine the learner's concerns. So we look at what do they need? What are their interests? How are they feeling about themselves? We diagnose and develop strategies for instructions to meet our learners' needs. We teach the basic skill of learning and problem solving to our students. We match our teaching procedures to the learning styles of our students. And finally, we evaluate the outcomes of our curriculum. So we really kind of mesh in both of those models that we talked about earlier. So when looking at the development, there's different key areas that we look at. First, we look at scope. So the content needs to be covered in a variety of ways. That way we keep our learners interested, and we can teach to different learning styles. Sequence, which is where we access prior knowledge of students to help them learn new concepts. So it's really building blocks. We can always refer back to what they learned earlier to help them understand a new concept, which is great because it allows for differentiation. So maybe a student is up here and needs to be pushed up another level. We can refer back for them, but maybe there's a student way down here that we still need to push up another level and another level and another level. So it really helps with that differentiation piece. Next, we look at self-sufficiency, which is where we're making sure that the content helps learners to attain learning skills and be self-sufficient. Then there's validity, which we know that knowledge becomes old and new things are introduced, and we are learning new things all the time. So the old knowledge becomes less relevant and the new knowledge needs to be emphasized into our curriculum. Then there's learnability. Content should be within students' understanding and experiences. Is the content relatable to our students? If it's not, how can we make it relatable? And finally, interest. Content should be meaningful and useful to students. It's much easier to teach a topic that students are interested in than one that they're not. So when we're developing our curriculum, we need to make sure that we have student involvement because they're the ones who are being truly affected by our curriculum. We do this through student interest surveys. So we want to know how do our students learn best, and who better to ask than our students. We can look at student scores on state and district testing. Which areas are students lacking in, and which areas are students already achieving highly in? We can use student focus groups. So what do students want to learn and be exposed to? Our ultimate goal is for students to be successful in their adult lives. So by doing all of these things, we're able to gear our curriculum to best meet their needs and their goals. The next thing is staff involvement. You guys, the teachers, you're the movers and the shakers. You're the ones who are using this curriculum. So it wouldn't make sense for administration to develop a curriculum and say, hey, use this without any of your input. Because guess what? We're not the ones who are implementing this every day. We're not the ones who are seeing what kids need every single day. That's you guys. So who better than to help make the curriculum? In order to have staff involvement, we need leaders for each curricular area. Those leaders will be in charge of developing and evaluating curriculum. Next, we need committees. People who are going to work with those leaders to develop that curriculum and give those people ideas. We can also use staff surveys to help us get ideas, asking questions like, what does your curriculum need in order to help you meet the needs of our school-wide goals? What resources have been useful to you in the past? How do your students learn best? And finally, when we implement new curriculum, that means we're implementing change. And as an administrator, I have to know that change is a process, that it doesn't happen overnight. And you guys as a staff also know that, hey, it's not going to happen overnight, and feel safe in knowing that I know that too. I'm not expecting everyone to go and do this tomorrow. It's okay. It takes baby steps. As long as we're still going towards our goal, it's fine if it takes a while. We also know that change is exciting, but very scary. Often when changes are implemented, we feel as if we have lost control. That's because we're learning something new. And we know that at first, when we try something new, we might not be great at it, and we might not really know what to do. And that's okay. So yes, it will be scary at first, but we're going to get through that, and then ultimately this change will be a great thing for our school. In order for change to occur, we must work together. So teachers need to be allowed that time to collaborate with others and to help get ideas on how to implement changes. So know that you guys will get that time to work with each other, to work with leaders, to work with your administration to help you in implementing new curriculum changes. And finally, implementing change requires a commitment to that change. That means the staff is allowed time to implement that change. That means that we're giving you time at professional development to look at these changes and figure out how you're going to implement it. We're giving you time in team meetings. We're giving you time to work with each other, because we can't expect you to implement a change but not give you any time to do it, or any time to work with each other so that you can work through any problems you might have. We also need to make sure that leaders are available to help implement that change and to supervise those changes, just in case you do have questions, because we can't make a change if you're not sure how to make that change. And finally, as we said earlier, teachers have to be involved in creating the curriculum that leads to the changes. You're the ones who are teaching this stuff. So it's going to be much easier to make the change if you were involved in creating the curriculum. It should really be geared to what you need, to what our students need, to what our school needs. So that leads me to the last point. We can do it. We can make these changes. Because overall, these changes are what's best for our students, which is what we're all here for. They're what's best for our school. They're what's best for our district, and they're what's best for our staff.